For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into the vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call all the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now, when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
The Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible defines grace in this way. Grace is God's unmerited, free, and spontaneous love for sinful mankind, revealed and made effective in Jesus Christ. And as such, it lies at the very heart of the Christian gospel and is its most distinctive feature. We do belong to a gracious God, a God who pours out his love on all, who gives his forgiving grace to save us from sin and death. This is good news. This is great news. This is, as the definition said, the heart of the gospel. Good news. Until we are brought face to face with the way that God chooses to be gracious. Now, Jesus' parables always point to the most radical nature of our loving God. A God who does not comply with human standards of fairness. A God who is not bound by human contracts. I want you to keep in mind now one of the things that is overlooked in this story that Linda read this morning. And this is it. The vineyard owner keeps going to the hiring hall all day long, beginning early in the day and continuing time after time until the end of the day, the very last hour, to get his laborers for the vineyard. Remember that. Now I have a question. Who would have heard gladly and understood deeply this story that Jesus told when he first told it? Who would have known and felt its truth? Let me suggest a few. There were those who were rejected as outcasts by the socially accepted and the religiously correct Pharisees of the day, because those persons were not socially accepted and were not religiously correct. There were those who were perhaps like someone here today, who have felt the sting of not being wanted, of not being counted as good or smart. And then I think in that hiring hall there were people who had heard Jesus before, but they did not heed his words. But they listened to him again that day, and they longed for a second chance. I'm sure there are those of us even now who have passed up opportunities to say a word of love to another, to heal a broken relationship, or to exchange encouraging words instead of judging words. We yearn for a second chance. Those would have heard the truth of this story. And now I'm wondering if there were strangers, perhaps immigrants, in that hiring hall. We hear much grumbling and anger today in our society toward the strangers that are in our land, who, just as we, seek life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness with the freedom that we all enjoy. I believe they would have heard Jesus' story and gladly understood its truth. So whoever needs a second chance in life, whoever has some kind of a gulf of separation between themselves and another, whoever is on the margin of our social and economic structures today, whoever is on the other side of narrow and prejudicial social attitudes, all need a bridge of reconciling love to breach that separation and to reach the land of hope and promise. The truth of Jesus' story this morning is this: we can receive that chance, and we can receive that grace from a source of power that is not our own, a source of power with a capital P that lifts us up, which sets us on our feet and points us in a new direction for our lives. All of those, even ourselves now in our need, would hear the truth of Jesus' story. Why? You might ask me, why? Well, a moment ago, I asked you to remember something about this story. What was it?
He was hiring all day.
There you go. He kept going back to the hiring hall, right? He kept going back to the hiring hall until the last workers, even at the end of the day, were taken to the vineyard. see, this story is not about pay. It's not about contracts for work that was done. It's about the invitation. It's about the invitation. The invitation to come into the joy of God's gracious kingdom and leaving behind in this often bitter and hate-filled and anxious world, to go into a land of hope and peace. And you know, no one is left out. Everyone is invited, no matter who or when or where they are in the journey of life. No one is left out. All are sought by God, who sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to seek and to save the lost. Can I get an amen? Thank you. So if no one can be left out of God's kingdom, then it follows it's never too late. Have you said to yourself more than once, oh, it's too late for me, I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, or whatever, it's too late? On one of our trips to Oregon to visit our daughters, Lisa and Laura, we were driving through the Rockies near Denver, Colorado. And we noticed a truck ramp, escape ramp, truck escape ramp. You know those places that when you're on a steep downgrade, the truckers can pull off to the side when they lose their brakes, and it's made of sand, soft sand and gravel, and it'll stop the truck. This particular escape ramp had a sign on it which said, "Escape ramp closed." Have you ever been in a bad place? Going downhill without brakes? Have you ever been in a tough place emotionally and spiritually, and there doesn't seem to be an escape? No doors are open to get out into that land of promise. Well, in God's kingdom, that is that place in your heart where God's gracious love resides and is at work. The door is always open, and it's never too late. Now let me tell you about Goldie. Goldie was 82 years old, and she showed up at Bible study that late in her life. And she was unwashed, not baptized, and unwashed in more ways than one. She had had a hard life. But now in her old age, she was seeking some peace and some welcome. She was looking for that place where no one can be left out of God's embrace. She had a bright gold tooth in the front of her mouth so that when she smiled, it sparkled. Well, she got baptized at age 82, and she was received as a full member of Christ's church, joined the fellowship of his disciples, and she was so proud and felt so accepted and so happy that she shared her joy with others. And she would say, "Did you know I was baptized? I'm a disciple of Jesus, and you can be one too. It's never too late." Finally, in Jesus' story of the laborers in the vineyard, we are pointed to the great generosity of the owner. Listen to the words again that are in the story. I choose to give to the last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Are you envious because I am generous? Or are you grumbling because I am generous? It is always God's generous grace that sustains and strengthens us throughout this journey of life. It's not our effort alone. It's not even our false sense of status that we use to put ourselves above others. It is only and always God's abundant, undeserved, and unmerited grace that saves us. Well, Goldie died at age 85. And the church was full to overflowing for her service of death and resurrection. And all remembered Goldie's loving invitation to them to come into the fellowship of God's embrace. She didn't have much, but what she had, she shared generously to help others. She had become a faithful laborer in the vineyard, and she was one of the latecomers. But the blessing that she received and that she shared was spread to so many others. And so my hope today is that the same generous love will touch our hearts, and we may hear God say to us, "Come, come, my child, into the vineyard. My generous grace is for you."